The U.S. Defiant drifted silently in the darkness of space. Commander Jack Ellis stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the massive alien ship on the viewscreen. It was 3 times the size of the Defiant, with sharp angles and a metallic surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They're hailing us again, sir," said Lieutenant Frank Miller from his communication station. Ellis took a deep breath. This was it. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. History would remember this moment. "Open the channel," Ellis said. The screen flickered, and the image of a reptilian creature appeared. It had dark green scales, yellow eyes with vertical pupils, and a ridge of spikes running from the top of its head down its neck. When it spoke, its sharp teeth gleamed. "I am Ambassador Zortak of the Vraxian Dominion. We welcome you to civilized space, humans." Ellis stepped forward. "I am Commander Jack Ellis of Earth. We are honored to meet you and hope for peaceful relations between our peoples." Zortak's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "Of course, peace is always our preference when meeting new species, especially ones as fragile as yours appears to be." Ellis felt a chill run down his spine, but kept his face neutral. "We would be grateful for the opportunity to learn more about your civilization, Ambassador." "Indeed, we shall meet in person. Prepare your shuttle bay to receive my diplomatic vessel." 2 hours later, Ellis stood in the shuttle bay with his first officer, Commander Paula Green, and Dr. Ben Martinez, the ship's chief science officer. The Vraxian shuttle was smooth and sleek, unlike the bulkier human craft. When Ambassador Zortak emerged, Ellis was surprised by his size. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders covered in what looked like natural armor plates. Behind him came 4 other Vraxians, each wearing ornate uniforms that seemed to be a blend of cloth and metal. "Commander Ellis," Zortak said, extending a clawed hand. "How strange to meet beings with such soft skin." Ellis shook the ambassador's hand, feeling the rough scales against his palm. "We're pleased to welcome you aboard the Defiant." The meeting took place in the ship's conference room. Ellis watched as the Vraxians examined everything with obvious curiosity. Dr. Martinez had prepared a presentation about Earth and human civilization, which the aliens observed with what seemed like amusement. "Fascinating," Zortak said when the presentation ended. "You've accomplished much despite your physical limitations. No natural weapons, no armor, such limited strength and speed. It's remarkable you survived evolution on your world." Commander Green shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "We compensate in other ways, Ambassador." Yes. Your intelligence has clearly helped you overcome your natural weaknesses. This is why the Dominion exists, to protect and guide species such as yours." Ellis leaned forward. "Protect us?" "Of course. The galaxy is filled with dangers, Commander. Many civilizations would see a species like yours as easy prey. But under Vraxian protection, you would be safe to continue your development." "We appreciate the offer," Ellis said carefully, "but Earth is an independent world. We hope to join the galactic community as equals." Zortak's laugh was like stones grinding together. "Equals? My dear Commander Ellis, look at us. Look at yourselves. We are not equals by any natural measure." The ambassador stood up and walked around the table. "The Vraxian Dominion extends an official offer to Earth. Accept our protection and guidance as a client species. In return, we will share some of our technology and ensure your safety." "And if we decline?" Ellis asked. "Then you will remain isolated. The galaxy is not kind to the weak who refuse help from the strong." After the Vraxians departed, Ellis called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. "They think we're pathetic," Commander Green said. "Did you see how they looked at us? Like we're children." Dr. Martinez nodded. "Their society appears to value physical strength above all else. They genuinely believe they're superior." Ellis stared out the viewport at the stars. "We need to report this to Earth immediately. The Vraxians have given us a choice that's no choice at all. become their servants, or face isolation. Ellis turned to his crew, determination in his eyes. We won't bow to intimidation. If the Vraxians want to test humanity's strength, they may find we're not as weak as they think. As the Defiant set course for Earth, Ellis couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. The Vraxians had clearly underestimated humans, a mistake many others had made throughout history, and it had always been their downfall. 6 months had passed since first contact with the Vraxians. Earth had refused their offer of protection, and tensions grew with each passing day. Major Susan Wright sat at her desk in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, studying reports from across the galaxy. As the head of Alien Tactical Analysis, she had spent every waking hour learning about the Vraxian Dominion. What she discovered disturbed her deeply. The Vraxians had a pattern. They would find a species they deemed weaker, offer protection, and slowly take control of their planets and resources. Those who refused were either cut off from galactic trade or conquered outright. Major Wright, a voice called from her doorway. She looked up to see General William Harris, his face grim. "Sir," she said, standing quickly, "the Vraxians have sent a new message. I need your expertise at the Security Council meeting in 30 minutes." The council chamber was filled with representatives from every major nation on Earth. Wright took her seat next to General Harris as the Vraxian message played on the large screen. Ambassador Zortak's reptilian face filled the display. "People of Earth, the Vraxian Dominion recognizes your spirit, if not your wisdom. We offer a solution to our disagreement, a challenge." The room grew quiet as Zortak explained. The Vraxians proposed a military competition on a neutral world. If humans won, Earth would gain full autonomy and equal standing in galactic affairs. If the Vraxians won, Earth would become a protectorate under their control. When the message ended, chaos erupted in the council chamber. "This is clearly a trap," Wright said when called upon to speak. "The Vraxians excel at combat. They've never lost one of these challenges before. But if we refuse," countered a council member, "we look weak. They could use that as an excuse to isolate us completely." After hours of debate, the council voted to accept the challenge, against Wright's recommendation. General Harris pulled her aside after the meeting. "Susan, I'm putting you in charge of our response team. You have 3 months to prepare a squad to face the Vraxians." Wright's mind raced. "Sir, I'll need specialists. The best we have. You'll get them, whatever you need." 2 days later, Wright stood before 3 soldiers in a secret facility built into the Rocky Mountains. These were Earth's finest, people who had never failed a mission. "Sergeant Alan Casey," Wright said, looking at the tall man with a scar across his cheek. "Special Forces, expert in survival and guerrilla tactics." Casey nodded, his eyes sharp and focused. "Lieutenant Olivia Diaz, military engineer with a gift for understanding alien technology." Diaz was shorter than the others, with quick hands and quicker eyes. "And Corporal Kevin White, former Olympic athlete before joining the Marines, specialist in hand-to-hand combat." White stood at attention, his posture perfect. "The Vraxians think this challenge will be easy," Wright said. "They believe their natural armor, claws, and strength make them superior fighters. Our job is to prove them wrong." She activated a holographic display showing images of Vraxian soldiers. "They're physically stronger than us. Their skin is tough enough to stop small-caliber bullets. They can see better in the dark, but they have weaknesses." Wright highlighted different aspects of Vraxian physiology. "They're cold-blooded. They tire quickly. They rely too much on technology. And most importantly, they underestimate us." Casey stepped forward. "So we use their arrogance against them." "Exactly." Wright pulled up information about the challenge location. "The battlefield will be Caraxes, a planet with 5 different biomes. The challenge lasts 1 week. We'll face heat, cold, mountains, deserts, and jungles." Diaz studied the information. "They've designed this to showcase their advantages. Yes, but we can turn those advantages into weaknesses. Wright looked at each team member. Humans have something the Vraxians don't understand: adaptability. We've survived on Earth by changing, by enduring, by outsmarting stronger predators. White smiled. They think they're the apex predators. Let's show them they're wrong. For the next 3 months, the team trained harder than they ever had before. They studied Vraxian biology and battle tactics. They developed equipment that looked simple but contained hidden technologies. When the day came to depart for Caraxes, Wright gathered her team one last time on Earth. The Vraxians think humans are weak, she said. When this is over, they'll never make that mistake again. As their ship lifted off toward the stars, none of them knew they were about to change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The mountain facility hummed with activity day and night. Major Wright's team had only 3 months to prepare for a challenge that no other species had ever won against the Vraxians. Again, Sergeant Casey barked as Corporal White sprinted up the steep indoor track with a heavy pack. White's lungs burned, but he pushed through the pain. Every day, they increased the weight and lowered the oxygen levels. In another room, Lieutenant Diaz sat surrounded by holographic displays. Her fingers moved rapidly as she studied the broken pieces of Vraxian technology they had managed to obtain. Their armor has a weakness, she told Wright during the evening briefing. It's designed to withstand direct impacts and energy weapons, but the joints are vulnerable to certain frequencies of sound. Wright nodded. Can we exploit that? I'm working on a device that looks like a simple communication tool, but can emit those frequencies when needed. Each team member focused on different aspects of the coming challenge. Casey developed tactics based on human endurance. He knew the Vraxians couldn't maintain peak performance for long periods. They're sprinters, not marathon runners, he explained as he outlined his plan. We need to drag out engagements, make them chase us, wear them down. White trained his body to perform in extreme conditions. He studied Vraxian fighting styles and developed counters that used their momentum against them. They expect us to fight like them, White said, demonstrating a move that turned a Vraxian's greater weight into a disadvantage. But humans have been wrestling, boxing, and finding ways to defeat stronger opponents for thousands of years. The team trained in simulated environments matching Caraxes. They practiced in rooms heated to desert temperatures, then quickly moved to freezing conditions. They learned to function with minimal sleep, to eat strange foods, and to keep fighting when exhausted. One morning, Wright called the team together for a special demonstration. The Vraxians expect us to bring advanced weapons, she said, unveiling what looked like simple gear: knives, basic-looking guns, plain uniforms. So we won't. Diaz stepped forward. What you're seeing is the most advanced technology Earth has ever produced, disguised to look primitive. She picked up what appeared to be an ordinary knife. This blade contains nanomaterials that can cut through Vraxian armor at the right spots. She touched what looked like a normal watch. This tracks Vraxian biological signatures. Casey examined the equipment with approval. They'll underestimate these weapons. Exactly, Wright said. Everything about our approach must reinforce their belief that we're weaker. Then we show them how wrong they are. As training intensified, the team faced setbacks. During a simulation, White broke his arm. The medical team used advanced regeneration technology to heal him in days rather than weeks. You need to be more careful, Wright told him. On Caraxes, we won't have this technology. I learned something important from that fall, White replied. Vraxians don't account for pain tolerance. They expect a broken bone to take someone out of the fight. And it won't stop you. Not if Earth's freedom is on the line. The final weeks of training pushed them beyond what any of them thought possible. They ran until their legs gave out, then ran more. They fought in simulations until they could barely stand. They studied Vraxian psychology to understand how to break their morale. 2 days before departure, General Harris visited the facility to review their progress. Are they ready? He asked Dr. Linda Moore, the team's physician. Dr. Moore looked through the observation window at the team as they practiced. Physically, they've achieved the impossible. Their endurance levels, pain tolerance, and adaptability exceed anything we've measured before. And mentally, they believe they can win. That's half the battle. On their final night on Earth, the team gathered on the facility's roof, looking up at the stars where their challenge awaited. The Vraxians think they know what humans are capable of, Wright said quietly. But they've never seen humans fight for their freedom. Casey nodded. They think evolution favored them with claws and armor. But evolution gave us something better, Diaz added. Adaptability. White smiled. Tomorrow, we show them what that's worth on the battlefield. As dawn broke, they boarded their ship. Each carried the hopes of Earth with them. The Vraxians thought the challenge would prove human weakness. Instead, it would reveal human strength. The human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Caraxes. Through the viewports, the team saw a world of striking contrasts. Red deserts, blue mountains, green jungles, white ice caps, and vast grasslands. It's beautiful, Diaz said softly. And deadly, Casey added. Each zone has its own dangers. Major Wright checked the readings on her display. Atmospheric conditions are within human tolerance, but barely. Gravity is 12% stronger than Earth's. As they approached the designated landing area, they saw other ships already on the ground. The largest bore the sharp, angular design of Vraxian vessels. Look at that, White said, pointing to smaller ships surrounding the Vraxian craft. Those are observation vessels from other civilizations. Wright nodded. This challenge has drawn attention from across the galaxy. Many species want to see if the mighty Vraxians can be defeated. Their ship touched down on a flat plain. As the team prepared to disembark, Wright gave them one final reminder. Remember, appear weaker than you are. Let them underestimate us until it's too late. When the airlock opened, they stepped out into the warm air of Caraxes. A committee of aliens waited for them. Tall, thin beings with 4 arms and bluish skin. Welcome, humans, said one who wore elaborate robes. I am Galactic Judge Exelon. We will oversee this challenge and ensure fair play. Wright bowed slightly. We appreciate your impartiality, Judge. Before Exelon could respond, a loud hum filled the air. The Vraxian team had arrived at the meeting point in what looked like personal hover tanks. Their equipment gleamed with advanced technology. The lead Vraxian stepped forward, towering over the humans. His scales were darker than those of Ambassador Zortak, nearly black in the sunlight. I am Commander Dravkor of the Vraxian Elite Forces. His yellow eyes scanned the humans and their seemingly simple equipment. I expected more impressive warriors from Earth. Casey met his gaze without flinching. We brought what we need. Dravkor laughed, a harsh sound that showed his pointed teeth. What you need to lose, perhaps. Judge Exelon raised all 4 hands for silence. The rules of this challenge are simple. 5 terrain zones, 5 days. Each day you must complete objectives in a different zone. Points are awarded for success. The team with the most points at the end will be declared the winner. The judge activated a holographic map showing 5 colored areas on the planet. Desert, mountain, jungle, ice field, and grassland. Each presents different challenges. Exelon continued. You will begin in separate camps at opposite ends of the competition zone. Communication with your ships is forbidden. You may use only the equipment you brought with you. Wright studied the map carefully, memorizing key features. Behind her, she heard whispers from the gathered alien observers. Those poor humans. They don't stand a chance. The Vraxians will crush them. But she also noticed a small group of aliens standing apart from the others. They were from various species, but they all shared one thing. They came from worlds under Vraxian protection. One of them, a small creature with 4 eyes, caught Wright's attention and made a subtle gesture of support. Wright nodded slightly in acknowledgement. As the teams prepared to move to their starting positions, Dravkor approached Wright again. Major, there is no shame in surrendering before we begin. Your species will make excellent servants once you learn your place. Wright smiled. "Commander, there's an old Earth saying, 'Don't count your chickens before they hatch.' I do not understand this reference." "You will," Wright said simply, turning away to join her team. The human squad set up their base camp in a small valley. Their equipment looked basic compared to the Vraxian technology, but appearances were deceiving. "They're watching us," Diaz said, noticing small drones circling above. Casey nodded. "Good. Let them see what we want them to see." As night fell, the team gathered around what appeared to be a simple fire. "Tomorrow the desert zone," Wright said quietly. "The Vraxians will come in hard and fast, expecting to overpower us." White checked his gear, "And we'll let them think they have." "Until night falls," Casey added with a slight smile. Wright looked up at the unfamiliar stars of an alien sky. In less than 24 hours, the galaxy would begin to see what humans were truly capable of. The Vraxians thought the challenge had already been decided. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The desert zone blazed under twin suns as the challenge began. Heat waves rose from the red sand, distorting the horizon. The first objective was simple: capture and hold 3 points marked on the competitors' maps. The Vraxians moved fast. Their hover vehicles sped across the dunes, kicking up clouds of sand. Commander Dravkor led from the front, his team equipped with heavy armor and powerful weapons. "They're heading straight for Point Alpha," Diaz said, watching the dust clouds through binoculars. Major Wright nodded. "As expected. Let's move." Instead of racing toward the points, the human team moved slowly, conserving energy in the extreme heat. They carried water packs and wore light clothing that covered their skin. The alien observers watched from floating platforms, their comments broadcast to audiences across the galaxy. "The Vraxians have already secured the first point," one commentator said. "The humans seem to be struggling with the heat." By midday, the Vraxians had captured all 3 points. Dravkor stood proudly as the judges awarded his team the maximum score for the first objective. "Perhaps the humans will provide more challenge tomorrow," he said loudly enough for the observers to hear. Wright's team appeared to retreat to the edge of the desert zone, seeking shade in a cluster of rock formations. "The humans are hiding," a Vraxian soldier told Dravkor. "Shall we hunt them down?" "No," Dravkor replied. "Let them hide. We've won today. We need to rest for tomorrow's challenge." As the suns began to set, the temperature dropped rapidly. The Vraxians, cold-blooded by nature, moved their vehicles into a tight circle and activated heating units. Their metabolism slowed as their bodies adjusted to the colder temperature. But in the human camp, activity increased. "Now," Wright said simply. Casey pulled out a map. "The Vraxians need to stay warm through the night. They've clustered their forces here." He pointed to a spot on the map. "Their guard will be minimal." The human team moved out under cover of darkness. Unlike the Vraxians, they could function effectively in the cold night air. They approached the Vraxian camp silently, using the sand dunes for cover. "3 guards," White whispered. "The rest are in low-energy states." Diaz activated a small device that looked like a simple scanner. "Their communications are down for the night. They didn't expect to need them." Casey nodded to White, who moved forward alone. The first guard fell silently, caught in a chokehold that rendered him unconscious without a sound. The second turned just in time to see White's fist before everything went dark. The third guard reached for his weapon but found Diaz standing before him, holding a small device that emitted a high-pitched sound. The Vraxian's armor joints locked up, making him unable to move. "What is this?" The guard hissed. "What are you doing to my armor?" "Winning," Diaz said simply, before Casey knocked him unconscious. With the guards neutralized, the team moved through the Vraxian camp. They didn't damage any equipment. That wasn't their goal. Instead, Diaz planted small devices on each vehicle and weapon. "Trackers?" Wright asked. "And more," Diaz replied with a smile. "They'll work perfectly fine tomorrow, until they don't." Meanwhile, Casey and White were busy. They moved to each of the 3 objective points and placed Earth's flag alongside the Vraxian one. According to the rules, if both teams' flags were present at dawn, both would receive half points. The Vraxians would still be ahead, but not by much. As the first sun began to rise, the human team was back at their camp, appearing to have spent the night there. The observers' drones had somehow missed their nighttime activities. When Dravkor awoke and received reports that the humans had managed to share the points, his roar of anger echoed across the desert. "Impossible," he shouted. "They couldn't have reached the points without being seen." Judge Exelon floated down to the Vraxian camp. "And yet they did, Commander. The scoreboard now shows the Vraxians with 15 points and humans with 7.5. The alien observers buzzed with excitement. The expected Vraxian domination hadn't materialized. Some began to watch the humans with new interest. "How did they do it?" one observer asked another. "I don't know," came the reply. "But I'm starting to think we've all underestimated these humans." As they prepared for the day's challenge in the jungle zone, Wright gathered her team. "They're angry now," she said. "They'll be careless. And that's exactly what we want." The jungle zone was hot and wet. Thick trees blocked the sunlight, and strange sounds echoed through the dense vegetation. The day's challenge was to find and retrieve 5 hidden objects while avoiding native wildlife. "Spread out," Dravkor ordered his Vraxian team. "Find those objects quickly. The humans must not gain ground." The Vraxians moved through the jungle in their heavy armor, cutting down plants that blocked their path. Their powerful weapons scared away most of the dangerous animals. They found the first object within an hour, a small metal sphere hidden in a hollow tree. Meanwhile, the human team took a different approach. They moved silently, leaving the plants intact, studying the patterns of the wildlife instead of scaring it away. "The animals know where the safe paths are," Casey explained, as they followed a group of small, 6-legged creatures through the dense underbrush. Wright nodded. "And they can lead us to water and food sources, which might be where the objects are hidden." By midday, both teams had found 2 objects each, but the Vraxians were beginning to struggle. Their heavy armor trapped heat, making them overheated in the humid jungle. They needed frequent rest stops to cool down. The humans kept moving. Their bodies were sweating, releasing heat naturally, something the Vraxians found disgusting but effective. "How can they keep going?" a Vraxian soldier asked Dravkor. "They should be exhausted by now." "They're weaker but more efficient," Dravkor admitted grudgingly. "But they won't find the remaining objects before us." As the day wore on, Diaz noticed something important. "The devices I planted yesterday are working. The Vraxians' equipment is using more power than it should. Their batteries will drain faster than they expect." By late afternoon, the humans had found 4 objects while the Vraxians had 3. But the sky darkened suddenly as storm clouds gathered. "Weather warning," Judge Exelon announced to both teams. "Severe electrical storm approaching. Seek shelter immediately." The human team quickly found a cave in a nearby hillside. They set up their simple-looking equipment and settled in to wait out the storm. Not far away, the Vraxians also found shelter, but as the storm intensified, 2 of their soldiers were still missing. "Their communications are down," Diaz said, monitoring her small device. "The storm is interfering with their technology." Wright looked out at the pouring rain and flashing lightning. "Can we track them?" Diaz nodded. "The trackers I planted still work." Casey stepped forward. "I'll go." "Not alone," White said, already putting on rain gear. Wright hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful. This isn't worth dying for." "Yes, it is," Casey replied. "This is exactly what makes us different from them." Casey and White ventured into the storm. The rain fell in heavy sheets, and lightning struck nearby trees. Using Diaz's device, they found the missing Vraxians trapped under a fallen tree. One was unconscious, the other trying desperately to lift the massive trunk. Without hesitation, Casey and White rushed to help. Together with the conscious Draxian, they managed to lift the tree enough to pull out the injured soldier. "Why?" the Vraxian asked as they carried his comrade toward the human shelter. "Why help us? We are enemies." "We're competitors," White corrected him. "Not enemies." Back at the cave, the humans treated the injured Vraxian with their medical supplies. The alien observers' drones captured everything, broadcasting it across the galaxy. When Dravkor learned what had happened, he was furious. "They're making us look weak." In his anger, he made a decision that would change everything. "Prepare the illegal weapons," he told his second-in-command. "Tonight we end this charade." "Sir, if the judges discover—" "They won't," Dravkor snapped. "And even if they do, it will be too late. I will not be humiliated by soft-skinned primitives." As night fell, the storm passed. The judges awarded points for the day's challenge, 3 to the Vraxians and 4 to the humans. The scoreboard now showed them nearly even. "We're making progress," Wright told her team as they prepared for the night. "Tomorrow's mountain challenge will." An explosion rocked their camp, throwing everyone to the ground. Through the smoke, they saw Dravkor and his soldiers approaching, wielding weapons that glowed with forbidden energy. "The Vraxians are attacking our camp," White shouted as another explosion hit nearby. Casey helped Diaz to her feet. "So much for rules." Wright's face hardened as she saw Casey's arm bleeding from a deep cut. "They've made their choice," she said. "Now they learn what happens when humans are pushed too far." Alarms blared across Caraxes as Judge Exelon and the other officials registered the illegal attack. The alien observers scattered, their floating platforms rushing to safety. But their drones remained, recording everything. "Violation of competition rules." Exelon's voice boomed over the communication system. "Cease hostilities immediately." Dravkor ignored the command. His soldiers surrounded the human camp, their weapons glowing with forbidden energy. "Surrender now," he growled, "and I may let you live as servants." Through the smoke and flames, Wright and her team took cover behind rocks. Casey's arm was bleeding, but he still held his weapon steady. "What's the plan?" White asked, eyeing the advancing Vraxians. Wright looked at her team. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they weren't outmatched. "Diaz, are your devices still active on their equipment?" Diaz nodded, tapping on her small computer. "Yes, all of them." "Activate the overload sequence." Diaz's fingers flew across the screen. Seconds later, the Vraxians' weapons began to spark and shut down. Their armor systems flickered. "What is happening?" Dravkor shouted as his soldiers fought with their malfunctioning equipment. "That's our opening," Wright said. "Mountain tactics now." The team split up, moving with a speed that surprised the Vraxians. Despite their supposedly primitive weapons, the humans struck with precision. White engaged 3 Vraxians at once, using their heavier bodies against them as he had trained. When they lunged, he dodged, causing them to crash into each other. His seemingly simple staff extended into a high-tech weapon that delivered electric shocks to the exposed joints in their armor. Casey, despite his injury, moved like a ghost through the battlefield. His knowledge of guerrilla tactics allowed him to appear and disappear, striking vulnerable points and vanishing before the Vraxians could respond. Diaz used her technology to maximum effect. What looked like simple grenades released targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Vraxians' remaining technology. Their advantage crumbled with each passing moment. Wright confronted Dravkor directly. The Vraxian commander towered over her, his claws extended. "You are nothing," he roared, swinging at her with enough force to break bones. Wright stepped inside his reach, moving closer rather than further away. It was the last thing Dravkor expected. Her simple-looking knife found the gap between his armor plates, its advanced edge cutting through scales that could normally stop bullets. Dravkor fell to his knees, not seriously injured but shocked. "How?" he gasped. "You thought humans were weak because we lack claws and armor," Wright said, standing over him. But we've been fighting stronger enemies since we first stood upright on Earth. We don't need natural weapons. We make better ones. By now, Judge Exlon had arrived with security forces. The Vraxian soldiers were disarmed and detained. The competition was officially ended due to Dravkor's violation. 3 days later, the teams gathered for the final judgment. The alien observers watched silently as Exlon addressed both groups. Due to the illegal actions of the Vraxian team, they are disqualified, the judge announced. The human team is declared the winner of this challenge. Murmurs spread through the watching aliens. Some nodded in approval, others looked shocked. Furthermore, Exlon continued, the human response to the attack has been reviewed by the Galactic Council. Their tactics, their adaptability, and most notably their mercy when they rescued injured Vraxian soldiers during the storm, has impressed the Council deeply. Wright stepped forward to accept the official victory token. Major Wright, Exlon said, Earth is now recognized as a full and equal member of the galactic community. No species may claim protection rights over your world. As the human team prepared to return home, they were approached by representatives from a dozen different alien species. We seek alliances with Earth, said one, a small being with 4 arms. We too have suffered under Vraxian protection. We believe humans understand what it means to be underestimated. Wright smiled. Earth would be honored to form alliances based on mutual respect. On their final night on Caraxes, Commander Ellis arrived to congratulate the team personally. You've changed humanity's place in the galaxy, he told them. The Vraxian Dominion has been forced to release several worlds from their control. More species are standing up to them every day. We just showed them what humans do best, Wright replied. Adapt, overcome, and keep fighting no matter the odds. As their ship lifted off, they could see new Earth flags being planted on Caraxes, marking the site of humanity's first victory among the stars.